Right in the middle of my son's wedding reception, Sophia placed a small box into my wife's hands and said, "Mom will like this gift." Samantha opened the lid and froze. The box slipped from her fingers, as if every sound in the room had just been shut off. Inside was not jewelry. It was an old pocket watch, shattered, the only keepsake Caleb ever had. The boy vanished 2 years ago. No one ever found him. So this thing, why was it here? Before I go on, if you're still listening, please tap subscribe and leave a comment telling me where you're listening from. And now, let me take you back to the moment that box opened, and to the moment I realized my son had been hiding an unforgivable truth from me. I did not step forward to snatch the box right away. I stayed still for one more beat, like a man used to staring at cold numbers on financial reports, waiting for the truth to rise on its own. Samantha bent down and picked up the box. Her hands were shaking, but she held it the way you hold something too fragile to drop again. On my wife's gentle face, panic did not explode into sound. It spread quietly, like a thin sheet of ice sealing over her eyes. I looked at what lay inside. An old pocket watch, the glass face cracked wide open, the back dented, the chain bent out of shape. But the thing I could not lie to myself about was the engraving along the metal edge, a small, uneven scratch, like the work of a child not yet steady with a carving blade. C-A-L. Caleb had once giggled as he showed it to me. He said he had made his own special mark, so no one could steal it. He was only 10 years old, but stubborn in a sweet way. He liked old things. He liked listening to my stories from when I worked as an inspector. He liked sitting beside Samantha while she read to him. 2 years ago, Caleb disappeared, and today, on Benjamin's wedding day, his keepsake sat in Sophia's hands like some meaningless gift. I lifted my head. The wedding went on smoothly, like a well-oiled machine. Soft string music, polite laughter, glasses clinking, formal hugs, proper congratulations. Benjamin stood at the center of the room in a perfectly fitted suit. My son smiled, shook hands, tilted his head at every compliment. He looked like a man who had prepared carefully for this moment and wanted no scratches on it. Sophia stood beside him. Her white dress hugged her frame like a statement. She was beautiful in a sharp way, like a blade polished bright, hidden under velvet. She had just given the gift and still wore a gentle smile as if nothing were wrong. Her eyes passed over Samantha, then passed over me. There was no surprise in them, only something hard to name: certainty. I stepped beside my wife and placed my hand on her back, not to comfort her with words. Samantha did not need empty words. She needed something solid to keep her from collapsing right there. "Come with me," I said quietly, for her ears only. Samantha nodded faintly. Her eyes stayed locked on the watch, as if looking away would make it vanish, and she would never know whether it had been real or just a cruel joke. I did not call Benjamin. I did not call Sophia. I did not ask questions in front of everyone. Years on the job taught me one thing. When someone places something in your hands at the most crowded moment, they do not want the truth uncovered. They want a reaction. They want noise. They want you to look wrong. And I would not give Sophia what she wanted. I led Samantha through the guests, past congratulations, and raised glasses. I nodded at a few familiar faces, smiling out of habit. Inside me, pieces were already sliding into place. When we reached the garden behind the mansion, the hot, damp savanna air hit my face. Fresh-cut grass, heavy blossoms, insects humming like a sound that never shuts off. Out here, the light from the hall barely reached us. No one could see us clearly. I chose a stone bench beneath an old oak tree where the shadows were thick. Samantha sat down the box, still resting in her lap. She opened her mouth to speak, but her throat failed her. After a moment, she finally managed to say, "Tyler, I don't understand." I looked at my wife. I had lived with Samantha nearly my entire life. I knew every small expression on her face, and I knew the fear in her eyes was not fear of the watch itself. It was fear of what it represented. Fear that Caleb had never been just an accident. Fear that we had chosen a gentler story so we could keep living. I took the box from Samantha and set it on the bench. I did not pick up the watch right away. I opened the lid again and studied it carefully, like a man examining evidence. The cracks in the glass were not from a single fall. They overlapped, layered, like it had been struck again and again. The chain was bent in one direction, as if someone had yanked it hard, or it had caught on something and been pulled free. I looked up at Samantha. "Are you sure this is Caleb's?" I asked, even though the question sounded cruel. Samantha met my eyes. Her eyes reddened, but no tears fell. "I put it around his neck the day before the picnic," she said. "I remember—" Caleb said it was his lucky charm. He said if anything happened, as long as he heard the ticking, he knew he was okay. I said nothing. Those words were like a small needle finding the softest place. "Then why?" Samantha swallowed hard. "Why is it here?" In Sophia's hands, I did not answer right away. I looked back toward the hall where the lights still blazed. I saw Benjamin pass behind a glass door, still smiling, still playing the perfect groom. I wondered if my son knew about this. And if he did, how long he had chosen to stay silent. I turned back to Samantha, keeping my voice even like I was reading a report. "Listen to me," I said. "We will not cause a scene here. Not because I'm afraid, but because I won't give them a reason to turn us into a joke." Samantha looked at me like she was holding on to every word. "But Tyler, Caleb—" I placed my hand over hers and squeezed gently. "I know," I said, "and I promise you, tonight I will not leave this mansion until I understand where that watch has been." Samantha took a long breath, forcing her breathing steady. She nodded, like someone pushed off safe ground, still trying to swim. I closed the box and slipped it into my inner jacket pocket. I did not want it left on the bench. I did not want anyone to see it by accident. This was no longer a gift. It was a reminder, a signal, a message sent straight into Samantha's heart, right in the middle of our son's happy day. I stood and adjusted my collar as if nothing had happened. I turned to Samantha. "Go back inside," I said. "Smile, just enough. If anyone asks, say you're tired from the heat. Do not mention the box." She hesitated. "And you?" I looked toward the hall. Sophia stood there, raising a glass with a group of women in expensive dresses, smiling like she had been born to that room. I spoke slowly. "I'm going to find answers." And inside me, one thing was already clear. If Sophia chose today to bring out that watch, then she was not afraid of us. But she would be... When I started looking at the things people always assume no one notices, I stepped back into the light, the box heavy in my pocket, a chill running up my spine. My son's wedding night had just begun, and I knew it would not end the way they expected. I walked back into the reception hall like a man who had only stepped outside for air in the heat. My face stayed calm. I had sat across from people who hid millions behind polite smiles. I knew this much: the one who controls his breathing controls the room. Samantha walked a few steps ahead of me. She returned to the table, holding a glass of water as an excuse. I saw her force a smile when a relative checked on her. But her eyes kept drifting, as if she was listening for the ticking of something that no longer existed. I heard no ticking, only my own heartbeat. Steady, slow, cold. I scanned the room for Benjamin. My son stood near the bar, talking with a few well-dressed men. Firm handshakes, knowing nods. It all looked like a perfect picture if I hadn't known there was a small box in my jacket pocket, one that had just shattered Samantha's world. I walked straight toward my son. Benjamin saw me. The smile stayed but stiffened slightly at the corners. He hugged me, patted my shoulder like we were still a normal family. "Did you step out?" he asked, light as air. "It's hot in there," I said. "I wanted to check that your mother's okay." Benjamin nodded. His eyes slipped past my shoulder, searching for Samantha. He didn't ask more. He didn't mention the box. He didn't say a word about Caleb. That silence was not accidental. I didn't push him. I had learned how to let a man walk into his own trap using nothing but calm. I left the bar and moved slowly around the hall. I watched Sophia from a distance. She moved between groups like the true host, even though this was her wedding day. Every touch of the hand, every tilt of the head, every smile perfectly timed. I saw no cracks in the surface, and that was what made my skin crawl. 2 years ago, there had been a summer afternoon just like this. Not in Savannah. Back then, we were in a quiet suburb on a picnic Sophia had suggested. Caleb had begged to go for a full week. He was excited to run around, to be outside, to eat the food Samantha had packed. I remember exactly how Benjamin spoke to me that day. "Don't worry, Dad. Sophia's got everything handled. We just need you and Mom there for the fun." I remember thinking it was strange. Benjamin liked control. He never let someone else handle everything for our family. But after Sophia came into his life, Benjamin changed. He spoke less, smiled less, and he always rushed to end conversations with us. Samantha was different. She wanted to believe it was just a phase, that our son had grown up, built a new family, and distance was natural. She chose the gentler story because she could not survive another loss. I saw the smaller signs, calls that ended too quickly, the way Benjamin dodged when I asked about Caleb, family dinners where Sophia would accidentally mention that children were a disturbance. I remember one night clearly. Sophia sat across from Samantha, set her fork down, her voice soft as velvet. "I think raising a child who isn't your own would be very hard," she said. "I'm afraid I wouldn't have the patience." Samantha tried to smile, tried to make it sound harmless. "Caleb is a good boy," she said. "He just needs time." Sophia nodded, but her eyes did not. In them I saw something cold and calculating, as if Caleb wasn't a child at all, just a problem. A few weeks after that conversation, Caleb disappeared. The police called it an accident, a moment of inattention, a slip, deep water, words easy to accept because they let people sleep at night. But I stood at the scene that day. I saw Caleb's shoes placed neatly at the edge of the grass, too clean. I saw his jacket not as wet as it should have been. I saw Sophia standing apart, arms around Benjamin, crying at the right moment, in the right place, the way people expect to see. And I saw Benjamin. He wasn't looking at the water. He was looking at Sophia, like he was waiting for a signal. For 2 years, Samantha kept Caleb's room exactly the same. She folded the blankets. She wiped the desk. She left a few comic books on the shelf, as if he might run home tomorrow. Every time I saw it, I said nothing. I just changed light bulbs, fixed hinges, did small things, so she could keep believing. But I never believed. I called a few old contacts quietly. I reread reports, statements, details the local police ignored because they wanted the case closed. I had no proof to reopen anything, only a feeling that someone had arranged everything too neatly. And tonight the shattered pocket watch sat in my jacket like a piece of evidence walking back on its own. I stopped near a hallway leading to the stairs upstairs. Fewer people passed through here. A server walked by with a tray of empty glasses. I called softly. "Excuse me," I said politely. "Where is the bride's room?" He pointed upstairs, hesitating slightly. "Second floor. End of the hall to the left, sir." I nodded, my thanks, then looked back at the reception one more time. Benjamin was still smiling with guests. Sophia was still raising her glass. Samantha was still holding herself together. No one in that room knew I had just made a decision. If the watch was a joke, I would find who made it. If it was a message, I would find who sent it. And if it was Sophia's mistake, then tonight that mistake would open a door she never wanted anyone to walk through. I climbed the stairs, one wooden step at a time. My heartbeat stayed steady. I did not rush. I only felt something tightening in my chest, not panic. Certainty. 2 years ago, Caleb disappeared, and everyone told me to accept it. But a father, a grandfather, cannot accept a story left unfinished. And I knew this story was not over. It was only beginning right here on my son's wedding day. The second floor was much quieter, like a different world cut off from the music and congratulations below. The hallway was long, carpeted thick, washed in soft yellow light, elegant and cold. I walked slowly, not because I was afraid of being caught, but because I needed to listen. Anyone who has worked as a financial inspector knows this. Sometimes the trail is not in the loud places, but where people assume no one is looking. At the end of the hall, on the left, stood a door with a white wreath hanging slightly crooked. I stopped a few steps away and looked around. No one. I raised my hand and knocked once very softly. No answer. I knocked again a little firmer. Still nothing. I didn't like this silence. It wasn't the kind that says no one's inside. It was the kind that says someone doesn't want to speak. I tried the handle. The door was unlocked. I opened it just enough to look inside. The room was spacious. A bed dressed in white, an armchair near the window. On the vanity sat a few small items, a perfume bottle, a jewelry case, a jeweled hair clip. Everything was neatly arranged as if the owner never allowed her life to be messy. I stepped inside and closed the door behind me carefully without a sound. I wasn't here to damage anything. I was here to find the truth. And the truth often hides in things people think don't matter. I looked around. No Sophia. No Benjamin. Only the faint, lingering scent of perfume. A reminder that this room belonged to her. I moved toward the vanity. A cream-colored clutch rested casually on the chair. I didn't touch it. Instead, I looked to the corner of the room where a small suitcase sat slightly open, as if something had been taken out and closed in a hurry. I walked over. Inside were a few dresses, a shawl, and a stack of papers clipped in a stiff folder. I didn't dig through it. I opened the folder just enough to glance. Printed lines, company names, figures, not what I needed. But beside it, tucked under the lining, was an old phone. Small, unremarkable. Not the kind of phone someone carries on her wedding day. I picked it up. It was off. I pressed the power button. The screen lit up. No passcode. I stood still for a few seconds, aware that I had crossed a line I never wanted to admit existed. Then I remembered Samantha's face when the box fell. I remembered the carved letters, Cal, and I knew that if I walked away now, I would spend another 2 years living in the dark. I opened the messages, short exchanges, cold, no emojis. No greetings, just business. A repeating thread appeared every month on the same day. Sent, received in full. Same schedule next month. Attached were transfer details and an address. Montana. Not a full address at first glance, but a town name, an area code, and a marking that looked like a meeting point. I read it again slowly, like reviewing an audit report. The amount wasn't small, but it wasn't flashy either. It was steady money. The kind paid regularly, like a fee to keep something in place. I checked the call history. Many short calls, mostly late at night. Several contacts without names. Only numbers. My throat went dry. The broken watch. The payments. Montana. One question formed so clearly in my mind I almost heard it spoken aloud. Had Caleb really disappeared, or had he been taken? I was staring at the screen when footsteps sounded in the hallway. Light, but deliberate. I turned off the phone, immediately placed it back exactly where it had been pulled, the lining over it. I stepped toward the window, standing like a man, simply looking outside. The door opened. Sophia walked in. She stopped when she saw me. Just for a beat. The smile on her lips didn't vanish, but it changed, thinned. "Father Tyler," she said gently. "What are you doing up here? Did you get lost?" I turned and faced her. I didn't look angry. I didn't look weak. I looked at her the way you look at someone who has revealed a wrong number in a report. "I was looking for some quiet," I said. "It's loud downstairs." Sophia stepped inside and closed the door slowly. She walked to the vanity and adjusted a hair clip as if this were just a chance encounter. "Is your wife okay?" she asked. I noticed Mom looked a bit tired. I didn't answer right away. I took the box from my jacket and placed it on the table nearby. I didn't open it. "You gave this to Samantha," I said. "I want to ask, where did you get it?" Sophia's eyes dropped to the box. This time I saw it a very slight flicker. She pulled it back instantly, like drawing a curtain. "Oh," she said, "it's just an old item I came across." I thought it meant something to the family. "Meant something," I repeated calmly. "Yes." I looked straight at her. "Caleb has been missing for 2 years," I said. "So where did you find his watch?" Sophia let out a soft breath, as if I were inconveniencing her. She sat on the edge of the chair, crossed her legs, composed. "You still haven't let that go," she said. "I thought you and Mom had accepted it." Something heated in my chest, but I kept my voice low. "I don't accept stories without an ending," I said. Sophia tilted her head. Her eyes were bright and cold. "Father Tyler," she said, "sometimes the best ending is the one people don't talk about." I stepped closer. Not to threaten, just close enough that she couldn't turn this into a game. "You brought the watch today," I said. "What did you want?" Sophia smiled softly. This time there was no warmth in it. "I want our family to move forward," she said. "Benjamin deserves a new life, not one dragged back by old things." "Caleb is not an old thing," I said, each word dropping like stone. Sophia looked at me for a moment, then stood and moved closer. Her voice lowered, sharpened. "You want the truth?" she asked. "The truth is, Caleb isn't here anymore, and Benjamin understood that a long time ago." I didn't blink. "Benjamin knows?" I asked. Sophia held my gaze as if testing where I might break. "He does," she said. "And he chose. He chose the future." At that moment, I heard the bathroom door open, a very soft sound. Then Benjamin stepped out. My son stood there, his suit still perfect, his hair still neat. He looked at me. He looked at Sophia. Then he looked at the box on the table. No one spoke for several seconds, but in that silence I understood the most painful truth of all. Benjamin wasn't surprised. He had known, and he had been silent, far longer than I ever imagined. Benjamin stood there, the yellow light softening his face, making him look younger, as if I blinked, I might see the boy he was 20 years ago. But his eyes were no longer a child's eyes. They were the eyes of someone who had chosen a side, and now refused to be pulled away from it. I didn't ask another question about the watch. His silence had already answered enough. Sophia sat up straighter, like someone who had just won a small game of chess. She didn't need to speak anymore. She only looked at Benjamin as if reminding him that everything was under control. I looked at my son. "You knew," I said slowly. "Then tell me, how long have you known?" Benjamin stepped farther into the room and closed the door. He wasn't in a hurry. He moved like a lawyer entering a meeting where everyone was already waiting. "From the beginning," he said. One short word, enough to make something inside me snap. I didn't let it show. I only nodded as if confirming a wrong figure on a page. Samantha's face filled my mind. The moment she opened the box, the way she swallowed her sobs, the way she still wanted to believe this family could be stitched back together. I looked at Benjamin, my voice steady. "Where is Caleb?" Benjamin didn't meet my eyes right away. He looked at the box, then out the window, like my question was an inconvenience. "Dad," he said, "don't do this today." I didn't raise my voice. I took one step closer. "Today," I said quietly, "is the day you stood in front of everyone and made promises, so you can tell the truth too." Sophia let out a soft breath, irritated that this was taking so long. "Father Tyler," she cut in, "you're making this bigger than it needs to be. Caleb left everyone's life a long time ago." I turned to her. "Be quiet," I said. Not loud, not harsh, just cold enough to freeze the room. Sophia stiffened for a moment. I saw a flicker of irritation, then the smile returned. Benjamin closed his eyes for a second, as if bracing himself for words he had rehearsed many times. "You should let it go," he said. "Caleb has a different life now. Don't ruin my wedding day over a child who no longer exists in this world." I heard every word, and in that moment I felt years added to my life. Not because I couldn't handle the truth, but because I realized my son had practiced saying that line until his voice no longer shook. I looked straight at him. "You're calling my grandson a child who no longer exists," I said. "Yet you're still standing here, still breathing, still wearing your wedding suit, still smiling at guests." Benjamin frowned, his voice hardening. "You don't understand," he said. "You don't know what I had to do to keep everything from falling apart." I nodded. "I understand," I said. "I just never imagined you'd keep things together by closing the door on a child." Sophia stood up and walked past me like she wanted to end this with the confidence of someone who had already won. "Benjamin," she said, "don't waste time. We need to go back downstairs." Benjamin looked at Sophia, then at me. In his eyes was something like irritation, and something like a plea for me to stop. I didn't. I took out my phone, but I didn't turn on the screen. I simply held it where Benjamin could see it. "You think I came up here just to ask questions," I said. "I've seen the transfers." Sophia stopped cold. So did Benjamin. This silence was different. It wasn't the silence of someone prepared with answers. It was the silence of someone yanked out of a safe place. Benjamin stepped closer, his voice low. "What did you do?" he asked. I looked at my son slowly. "I haven't done anything," I said. "I've only seen, and now I'm deciding what comes next." Sophia laughed, but it sounded dry. "What are you going to do?" she asked. "Call the local police. You think they'll listen to you. You know who Benjamin knows." I didn't argue. I didn't need to. I looked at Sophia, then at Benjamin. "I'm not calling local police," I said. "I'm calling people who understand money, people who can't be bought with a dinner or a promise." Benjamin stared at me, his eyes darkening. "You're going to destroy me," he said, his voice almost shaking. I shook my head. "You destroyed yourself the day you chose silence," I said. "I'm just done pretending." I walked to the door and opened it. The hallway was still quiet, but I knew downstairs the wedding was still loud. And if I went back down, everything could still pass as if nothing had happened. I could do what Samantha always wanted, keep the peace, keep appearances, give my son his perfect day. Then I thought of Caleb, a 10-year-old boy, a child who believed the ticking of a watch could keep him safe. I could not trade a child's safety for the comfort of a party. I stepped out of the room, walking fast but not running. I didn't want anyone to see panic. I wanted them to see a man doing what had to be done. I went down the stairs, avoiding the main hall. I followed a side corridor toward the back of the house, near the kitchen and staff rooms. There I stopped and took out my phone. I scrolled through my contacts. My finger paused on an old name. A man I once worked with at the Treasury. Someone who told me long ago that if I ever needed a clean line, to call. I pressed dial. The phone rang once, twice. The voice on the other end was older than I remembered, but still steady. "Tyler," he asked. "What's going on? I thought you retired." I looked toward a window. The wedding lights spilled out beautiful in a way that felt almost fake. I spoke low and clear. "I need you to trace a money trail," I said, "and I need it tonight. At a wedding." There was a brief pause. Then his voice turned serious. "Where are you?" I answered. "Savannah. And I believe a child is still alive, but no one wants him to come home." I heard him draw in a breath. "Tyler," he said, "if you're sure, don't do this alone. I'll call the right people." I ended the call and stood there for another moment. Inside the mansion, the music kept playing. Glasses kept clinking. Congratulations kept flowing. And me, I had just stepped onto a road with no way back. And the most frightening part was this. I knew Benjamin and Sophia would not stand still and wait for me. I did not go back to the reception right away. I stayed in the side hallway for a few more minutes, just to be sure my voice would not give anything away. Years on the job taught me one simple thing. When you have called the right people, the rest is about staying calm enough not to ruin it. Then I went to find Samantha. She was still seated at the table, her back straight, her hands resting on her glass of water. From a distance, she looked like a woman who was only tired from the heat, but I could see it clearly. Her eyes were not on anyone. She was staring into the empty space between bursts of laughter. I stepped beside her and leaned down. "Come with me," I said quietly. Samantha looked up at me, as if she wanted to ask what I knew what I had done. But she did not ask. She only nodded. There are moments when people do not need answers. They just need to know they are not alone. We slipped out through the back door, the one that led to the lawn and the front gate of the estate. No one noticed. At a big wedding, two older people disappearing for a few minutes does not draw attention. The air outside was still hot, but I could breathe better. Samantha stayed close to me. Her hand held my arm tighter than usual. "Tyler," she whispered, "who did you call?" I looked toward the long driveway where headlights flashed now and then. "I called someone who once helped me see the truth," I said, "and I told them we need Caleb." Samantha shivered slightly. She did not cry. She only closed her eyes for a second, as if holding her heart together. "Caleb, is he really alive?" she asked, afraid of her own words. I could not promise what I did not yet know, but I could not leave her in the dark. "I believe so," I said. "And that watch, it did not show up by accident." We stood under the old oak tree, where the lights from the house could not reach us. I looked down at the box in my hand. It was light, but it felt as heavy as a lifetime. After a while, I heard a car stop near the gate. Not a guest's car. The doors closed fast, clean. Footsteps, decisive. I looked at Samantha. "Stand behind me," I said. She did it without hesitation. Samantha is gentle, but she is not weak. She is just someone who lived on faith for too long. A small group of people came in through the gate. They wore plain clothes. They made no noise. But the way they moved said they were here to work, not to celebrate. The man in front nodded at me. "Mr. Tyler," he asked. I nodded. "We were told there may be evidence connected to a serious matter," he said. "Can you explain?" I held out the box and opened it. The yard lights fell onto the broken watch. The man looked down, then back at me. "This belonged to a child," I said. "My grandson, missing for 2 years. And tonight it appeared in the bride's hands." He did not ask unnecessary questions. He said only one thing. "We need to go inside." I nodded and led them through the side passage, away from the crowd. I did not want chaos. I did not want Samantha to hear shouting, or feel the weight of curious eyes. But some truths, no matter which door you use, will always find the light. As we neared the main hall, Sophia appeared at the end of the corridor, as if she had expected this. Her white wedding dress glowed under the lights. Her smile was still there. Her eyes were not. "What is going on?" she asked, her voice sharper than before. "Who are these people?" The man in front showed his badge and spoke briefly. I did not catch every word. I only watched Sophia. For the first time that night, she took a step back. Benjamin appeared right behind her. He saw me. He saw Samantha. Then he saw the people standing with us. His face drained of color, not because he feared for himself, but because he understood this was no longer under his control. "Dad," Benjamin said, his voice breaking, "you really did it." I looked at my son. For a moment, I wanted to soften my words. Say something a father says to shield his child from disgrace. But I thought of Caleb. I thought of the empty room Samantha still cleaned every week, and I said only one thing. I did what I had to do. Sophia turned as if to leave, but one of the men blocked her path. No one grabbed her. No roughness. Just a firm stop. Enough to say the game was over. Benjamin stood frozen like someone who had lost his air. He looked at Samantha. "Mom," he said, quieter now. Samantha stepped forward. She did not raise her hand. She did not scream. She only looked straight at her son and spoke in a voice I had never heard from her before, the voice of a mother pushed to the edge. "Where did you leave Caleb?" she asked. Benjamin did not answer. That silence was the answer. That night, everything moved faster than I expected. Calls. Confirmations. Rushed footsteps. I stood beside Samantha, holding her hand when it began to shake. Then a few days later, I got the call. They found Caleb on a remote farm in Montana. He was alive, thinner, quieter, but alive. When Samantha and I saw him again, he did not run into her arms like in her dreams. He just stood there, looking at us as if we were distant memories. Then he stepped forward slowly and rested his forehead against Samantha's chest. Samantha cried for the first time in 2 years. I did not cry. I only closed my eyes and took a deep breath, like a man who could finally breathe again. 1 year later, our backyard felt brighter, not because of sunlight, but because laughter had returned. Caleb still wakes up at night sometimes, still has days when he stares out the window in silence. But he plays again. He speaks again. He calls me Grandpa, like he used to. Benjamin was sentenced to 10 years. I did not ask for leniency. Neither did Samantha. We did not do it for revenge. We did it to draw a line. Every family must draw the line between love and wrongdoing. The day I closed the box and placed the broken watch in a drawer, I understood something. Justice sometimes arrives late. Sometimes it comes in a small, damaged thing that seems meaningless. But if you do not let go, it will find its way home. That night, as I watched Caleb sleep peacefully, I told myself slowly, like a bedtime story, family is not the place where everything is hidden. Family is the place that never abandons the weakest, even when the truth hurts the heart. Thank you for staying until the very end and listening to my story. If this story touched you, please like, subscribe, and share, so others can hear it too, because it might help someone hold on to a small piece of hope when it feels like every door has already closed.